All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to this virtual candidates forum for North Tillamook County voters, sponsored by MooVoter and the Tillamook County Pioneer. MooVoter is a nonpartisan Facebook group with nearly 1,000 members that strives to educate voters on issues that matter to them. The Tillamook County Pioneer is an online newspaper with 18,000 subscribers. My name is Sayde Walker, and I will be moderating this morning. Today, we're hearing from candidates and issues that will be on the ballot for North Tillamook County voters, including the Neah-Kah-Nie School District, which includes Garibaldi Grade School, Nehalem Elementary, and Neah-Kah-Nie High School. We will also be hearing from the North County Recreation District and the Nehalem Bay Health District. We also get to hear from some of the Tillamook County Transportation District candidates, as well as candidates running for Tillamook Bay Community College Board of Education. So we have a nice full group this morning. All North County candidates who are running in a contested race, as well as those running for the Transportation District and Tillamook Bay Community College of Education, Board of Education, they were all invited to this forum this morning, and we understand that not everyone can make it, so thank you to those of you who are here with us on this very lovely Saturday morning, and thank you to those in the audience as well. Today's forum will be divided into segments, starting with the Neah-Kah-Nie School Board, and for each segment, the candidates will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. We have a variety of questions that we've prepared for the candidates. And since we don't have any contested races this morning, we're going to do it a little bit differently, where we're going to do what we are calling a round table. So I will be fielding questions to candidates for the school district first and asking them to answer. They might not all answer the same question. They'll have opportunities to engage with each other and engage with me as the moderator. And I just want to make it clear, however, to everyone who's watching that these candidates are not running against one another. You can vote for all of them, but we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from those who are here with us this morning. Community members, you're welcome to ask questions in the chat function. You can send those to everyone, or if you want to, you can also just send them directly to me. I will be monitoring that as closely as I can, and we'll do our best to get to those questions at the end of each segment, as well as at the end of the forum as time allows. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started by meeting the candidates for Neah-Kah-Nie School District number 56. First off, we have Marisa Bayouth-Real. Marisa is running for the Zone 2 Director position, and also running for Zone 2 Director position is Landon Meyer, who could not make it here this morning. We have Katie Wilkerson is running for Zone 6 Director position. Katie wasn't able to be here this morning. But Michele Aeder is here with us. She's also running for the Zone 6 Director position. And then our final Neah-Kah-Nie School Board candidate is Joseph Carr, who is running for the Zone 7 Director position. He is running against Heidi Luquette, who was also unable to be here this morning. So with that, we're going to begin introductions. And we will start with Marisa. So you have 90 seconds to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Hi there. I am Marisa Bayouth-Real, and I'm an educator through and through. I was adopted into a family of educators when I was 3 months old. And I think this brings a perspective. I know it brought a perspective when I was in the classroom where I'd talk about that, and students who had non-traditional families, who were in foster care, who were adopted themselves, we could identify and connect with each other on that. And so, you know, my Thanksgiving tables had secretaries to principals, kindergarten teachers to college professors, lots of different races, even some different religions and spiritualities. And so I'm steeped in public education. It's who I am. And I think that that's something I'll bring to the table that's a little different than what's on the board right now. Carol Mahoney, who is a retired NKN educator, has been serving for the Bay City position, but she decided that she was ready to move on and do some other good stuff in her life. And so I think we have a lot of very quality, fiscally minded representation on the board. A lot of people who are part of big Fortune 500 companies and run their own businesses. And I think I would bring a different perspective with more of a focus on education in that world. So I hope to soak up like a sponge all their fiscal knowledge, because I've only ever been responsible for a language arts department budget. And I know that making sure that our school stays funded so that our programs like the music program can be enhanced and continue. And so I really do think that my expertise in education and specifically Neah-Kah-Nie is what sets me apart. Taught there for 17 years and I love those kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marisa. Next, we are going to have introductions from Michele. Michele, if you're ready.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I had something on my screen. It's been my pleasure to be a school bus driver for the students of the Neah-Kah-Nie School District for 32 years. I got to know many of the kids in the district as well as their parents. Those students on the bus have taught me the value of being respectful and listening and responding thoughtfully when the need arises. These are the skills I bring to the school board. The kids also showed me just how diverse our population is, and being on the board allows me to respond to their needs in meaningful ways. I was a volunteer of the Women's Crisis Center in Tillamook, now Tides of Change, for 35 years. During that time, I was also board chair at times. I've been on the school board since 2016. I have enjoyed working with the collaborative board and have seen many improvements to our school district. Among those improvements are the new track, the school-based health center, our welding shop, and remodeled construction trade shop. Additionally, we built 2 covered play areas, one at each elementary school at the beginning of the pandemic, which allowed us to feed students safely. We created 2 full-day preschools last year, one at each elementary school. They not only filled, but had a waiting list as well. I am proud of the Neah-Kah-Nie School District, including the staff and the board. I'm especially proud of our students for their hard work and commitment, and I appreciate the parents who are often the ones who provide the most influence on their children's success. Thank you for your support in the past. I ask for your vote so that I may continue to work for what is best for the students of the Neah-Kah-Nie School District.
Thank you, Michele.
Thank you.
All right, Joseph, you are next. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Joe Carr. I live in Bay City. I'm running for school board for a couple of reasons. One is I have 2 young children in the district in pre-K and first grade. So I have a vested interest in a robust and rigorous education for my own children, by extension, the rest of the community. Also, similar to Marisa, I'm a former teacher and administrator. I have 10 years of classroom experience. I've managed an $11 million grant budget for Gear Up, which we have a Gear Up in the district now. I've already reached out to the coordinator to learn more about it. So I have kind of an overall view of admin, and I understand the needs of administrators and leadership. I've also been in the classroom. In my current work, I am proud to be in a union. I understand the purpose of unions. I'm not put off by them or want to butt heads with that idea. So the teachers and staff will have my support. I want them to have the tools that they need. I want them to feel valued and recognized for their importance. And all of these things, when you throw them together in a stew, are good for students, good for families. And I'd like to be of service. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have 3 candidates here for the Neah-Kah-Nie School Board, and none of them are running against each other. They're all running for separate seats. So I am going to ask some questions, and we will have a bit of a discussion, and we'll just kind of do a roundtable set of questions that you'll all have an opportunity to answer. We will be timing your answers because there are 3 of you, so you'll have 60 seconds to answer the question. And so just be keeping your eye on that timekeeper box. But this is pretty low pressure, right? Because you're not opponents, you're just all running. So I want to make that very clear to anyone who's watching. You can vote for all 3 of these people if you want. But we want to take this opportunity to hear from them. So with that, we are going to start with Joseph. And our question is, outside of board meetings, how are you going to keep parents and the community involved and aware of what's happening in the district?
I think that using the normal channels that people use now to get the message out, so social media, things that are sent home. I work as a business consultant, so surveys and things that go home to gather thoughts and input from families, I would prioritize. I think just being visible. In the past, I took the lead on like culturally specific family nights and putting things like that together. So I've been to several events. They're good. We need to recognize parent responsibilities and time commitments and be flexible and offer different options for engagement. But I think that the school is doing a fairly good job at that. I would just work to continue with that, and really gather feedback from families and use that to develop policy.
Great, thank you. Marisa, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Any ways that you would work to keep parents in the community involved?
Definitely would support everything that Joe has brought up. I love the idea of sending out surveys to see directly what the families want, what they're looking for. I think that's a great way to utilize time better rather than investing a ton of our time as board members, as individuals in a group to come up with a great idea and then find out that's not what our parents need. I think that's a great perspective of where to start. One thing that I brought up in the past, when I first started teaching at Neah-Kah-Nie in 2003, I'm pretty sure it was, board members had a rotating schedule where they were able to get into every single school. It was at least twice a year. Granted, that was when the junior high and the high school were considered one school, that back in the day. But I think that's something that I don't know if it's direct policy. I haven't found it anywhere in the board policy, but it would be really neat to put something in there of policy that would say there's an expectation that once a year, board members end up in the schools to see what it's like, boots on the ground, right there in the trenches, so to speak. And so that's probably what I would add to it, is something more formal to get board members in each school, not as parents, not as a volunteer, but there is a board member to connect and observe.
Thank you. Michele, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Thank you. And I appreciated the thoughts of the others who came before me, so I don't have a lot to add to what they've said. I will be anxious to work with the new superintendent, Dr. Tyler Reed. And I know that in his past, he has used surveys in the schools, and I think that will be helpful as well. I don't know if he will choose to continue utilizing the community engagement meetings. The ones that I've attended were during the daytime, and since a lot of parents work during the daytime, it might be helpful if some of those would be planned for evenings so that parents can come. It's kind of a low-key social gathering in a local business, and I found those to be useful and helpful, having been on the board and attended some of those meetings. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Michele. Our next question will just go directly to you. What steps would you take to give more support to students in IEP programs?
And so that's for me, Michele?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm also a part of the Inclusion Alliance on the school board, which is our equity committee. And I'd had a question earlier during this process from a parent whose student is on an IEP and felt that their needs had not been met adequately through the system, and so I directed them to attend one of those meetings or submit their concerns to the Inclusion Alliance, because part of what we do is we work on equity issues, and it seemed to me that the way that IEPs are set up, the rules are followed properly, there isn't a reason that a student and a parent shouldn't feel supported through that process. So therefore, it may be an instance where the equity committee could intervene on their behalf and work for equity for those students. That is an important part of what we do. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Joseph, I'm going to kick it back to you. Same question. Is there anything in particular as a board member that you would do to support students who are on IEP programs?
Yeah, so I have a lot of experience with IEPs from my own child, and also from being a classroom teacher, utilizing them as a guide, having input. I think there's two things I would do or encourage. One would be educating parents on what their rights are, what an IEP is, and what they have access to. So there's obviously state protocols and documents that they can look at. I would suggest that we simplify it into like a easy to digest message. This is what's available. This is how you access it. I deal with this in my regular work all the time, simplifying. And then I would want to do have a thorough review of the tools that we currently have. Are we fully staffed? Do we have the resources that we need? If we don't, why not? And let's make that happen. I would also like our providers as much as possible to be local and in person, and I would push for that.
Thank you so much. Marisa, do you have anything you'd like to add on this subject?
Yeah, I'd love to. So my son has significant hearing loss in his right ear, and he's gone through, I think we're at 7 surgeries in the last 5 years now. And while he's not on an IEP, he takes part in the 504 program because he does need some extra support. So this last spring, I took an additional graduate level class from Lewis and Clark College, and it was called Disability and Universal Design. And so something I was able to do was connect with the Northwest Regional ESD and find some supports for my son that are in the classroom that are actually going to help everyone in the classroom here. So I fully back what Joe said about demystifying the language of IEPs. Oftentimes families that I would work with would tell me, hey, like I have my GED. I don't understand this. What does this even mean? And so clarifying that while also giving access to those resources and keeping in mind that a lot of the things that we would offer for students with IEPs are truly best practice for all students. So like in my son's classroom now, there's an amplifying device where instead of being singled out as the only kid who has to wear it, it helps amplify the teacher's sound for every kid in class. And elementary school kids are still building those neural pathways. So it helps everyone.
Mm-hmm. Another question for you, Michelle. What is something that you'll do if elected to address harassment, bullying, and intimidation in the school district?
Thank you for the question. And again, I think about the work that we've done on the Inclusion Alliance. I started that committee a couple of years ago with the school district, and we've been working on initially our equity lens and our equity statement, and then followed by a bias incident report form and included in that. And it was geared toward a language that a second grader could understand. So any child in the district. Fortunately, on our committee, we have a elementary librarian who works with us from Nehalem Elementary. So she was sure to make sure that all kids would be able to access the bias incident report form. And then we also came up with a checklist for administrators to use once they have a bias incident report. And now we are working on some forms of restorative justice. So rather than punitive, something punitive for students, we are working to maybe do something that is going to help teach them what was hurtful about their bullying or their harassment. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, Marisa, I have a new question for you. And the question has to do with, again, safety of students, particularly as it applies to firearms. Is this something that concerns you as a potential board member? And if so, what steps would you take to suggest, what steps would you suggest to ensure that students and faculty remain safe?
I'm concerned about it on a global level. My concern specifically at Neah-Kah-Nie is truly not that huge. The reasons why is because I used to teach there. I felt safe in the middle school building, and I've seen what the district, my husband still teaches there, so I get little updates. I see what the district has continued to do to control everything they have in their power to keep everyone as safe as possible. I know the Alice training has been brought up, and so I won't go deep into that, but it is very empowering. So I would say that what we really need to focus on is actually close to what Michelle was just talking about, this idea of restorative justice and connection. I think that having things put in place before the crisis comes is ideal. So conflict resolution would be great. I know we've had peer mediation before, and there's training that we can give kids for that. And then to dovetail on Michelle's topic as well, I think exposing our students to curriculum that allows them to think outside of their own identity and self is key, not in a way of pushing anybody else's ideology on them, but exposing them to multiple different experiences that people in our country have had.
Thank you. Joseph, I'm going to come back to you and ask you the same question. Do you have concerns about safety, particularly as it pertains to firearms? And are there steps that you would suggest as a school board member to kind of mitigate some of those concerns?
I think both the questions that have been discussed just now are kind of interrelated, whereas harassment and bullying is upstream from these events that can happen at schools. So as far as what I would do on the board, when you're looking at incident reports or student issues, I would want hard data on who's involved in these incidents. Is anyone overrepresented? Are there biases that are being shown? So I would want to take like a kind of a business analytical look at that. And then as far as firearms, yes, it's an epidemic, pandemic, global scourge, whatever you want to call it. And it affects our children. I would support and make sure that everything that we have in place is working. The best defense is for someone to not gain entry to the school. That's our first thing that we should be monitoring. And I believe that as a Bay City firefighter, we should be collaborating with emergency responders and law enforcement in the area and leaning on their knowledge and skills in that to guide us. And it should be a collaborative effort.
Thank you. Joseph, I'm going to ask you the next question, if that's all right. And the question is, do you feel there's a place in public education to teach on the issues of sex education, sexual identity, and preference? And if so, what grade level do you see that starting?
Yes, it deals with biology. It deals with sociology. It deals with what it is to be growing up and getting prepared to go into the world. So yeah, it's all kind of common sense stuff. As far as how it's presented or how it's received, depends on the person. When I was teaching, 5th grade was the entry point for like the nuts and bolts of sex education. From my experience, that was an appropriate place to start. And I think that keeping the curriculum and the conversation as concrete as possible to avoid confusing children is something that I would encourage. And then also open communication with families. If someone's not comfortable with that stuff, that's cool. Like, just let them know that it's happening and provide different options for them if they don't want their child to be learning about such things. So the state standards, I think, are appropriate as they are as far as when this stuff is introduced.
Great, thank you. Michele, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure, thank you. So I recall the years of school bus driving, and it seems that sex ed was always taught in the spring, and we would know when they got on the bus, based on all the giggles that were going on, that that's what had occurred that day. So as a bus driver, it was having my ears extra wide open to make sure that what the conversation was appropriate for the school bus. So I agree with what I heard Joe talking about, and I agree that the curriculum is appropriate for students based on their age at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna make time for one more question, and Marisa, it will go to you first. And the question has to do with homelessness and poverty, right? Because that creates really quite special challenges for students in the district. And do you think there's more the district can do to help mitigate some of those challenges for students? Do you see yourself advocating for those as a board member? What are your thoughts on this subject?
Absolutely. It's a huge focus in our district. We have a high level of students who live at or below the poverty line. And as we all know, that people who don't hit the poverty line are still really struggling to be able to afford basic necessities. So for me, so I grew up, I'm multiracial. I was adopted into a white family. My dad marched on Washington and heard MLK give his I Have a Dream speech. So that kind of diversity has been a huge part of my life. Socioeconomic diversity is not. I was raised by two educators, but they were of the boomer generation. They were really good with money. And while we were technically middle class, I was raised without a concern for where the next thing I wanted was. So I'm going to wrap this up really quick. Moving to the coast challenged me deeply personally to see what privileges I had through finances. And one thing that I was able to provide unofficially to my high school students when I worked there was I would mentor. Oftentimes it was the student who was the first to attempt to attend college, how to get through all the paperwork. And so I think we need a formal mentorship program with alumni and other community members to help our first generation college attendee students make it there and stay there.
Thank you. Michele, do you have any thoughts on this subject about homelessness and poverty that you'd like to share?
Sure, I do. I moved here 45 years ago and married my childhood sweetheart, and he was a commercial salmon fisherman, and one of my first jobs was working at the fish processing plant. I learned to crack crab, which is a skill I'm forever grateful for. So when somebody gives me crab, I get the most meat out of it. We didn't have a lot of money, and so I come from that background. We rented a house that was $65 a month rent for 10 years. And when we finally built our home in Garibaldi, we built it ourselves. And we moved in, and my son said to me, I no longer feel like a lower class person. And it hurt my heart to think that that was how he felt when we lived in those conditions. So I've had an eye on the students in the district. One of the statistics that was unnerving that I'd heard was that 20% of our students are being raised by their grandparents. And I think that speaks to poverty situations as well. There are a lot of things that tie into that, drug use and abuse. And so I think there's a lot of work that the Neah-Kah-Nie School District could be doing. And I think there's a lot they do already. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Joseph, same question. Do you think there's more that the district can be doing to support students who are experiencing homelessness and poverty?
From my experience in the district, I've found it to be a very warm and welcoming place. So I think that they are definitely doing their best. There are funding streams for these particular students through the federal government that I guess what I would want to review, that we're accessing them and utilizing them, making sure that staff have awareness around that. I would move to fully fund and fully provide resources to our family resource coordinators. This is kind of, they're on the front line. I'm familiar with it because my spouse is a family resource coordinator. She does great work. I would love if they had more tools and more access to help families, more consistent funding or whatever. And yeah, like the other two candidates, I can relate to this. My parents are both 18 when I was born. I grew up in poverty, in a trailer, food scarcity, and it wasn't fun for a long time. So I can relate to students experiencing that on a very personal level.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate all of your time this morning. And I just want to remind folks that these candidates are not running against each other. You can vote for all of them. They're all representing different seats on the school board, and we do appreciate their time this morning, their honesty in answering the questions. We are going to move on to our next segment for the sake of time, which is on the Nehalem Bay Health District. We have with us Marc Johnson this morning, who's running for director, position 1. Marc's opponent, Tia Laviolette, who's running for several positions in the county, was unable to attend today. So Marc, I'm going to kick it over to you if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sayde. Good morning, everybody. And thanks to MooVoter and the Pioneer for sponsoring this event again this morning. I'm running for the Health District, running for re-election to the Health District Board because I want to continue the work that the Health District has undertaken over the last half dozen years. Most of that time, I have been the president of the board and working with a really energetic and dedicated group of people. During that time, the district has consciously attempted to transform itself from serving as sort of a passive landlord of buildings to an open and collaborative advocate for actually improving local health and senior care in the community. To that end, we have advanced a bond measure that's on the ballot next week to make specific immediate improvements in health and senior care, as well as a long-term investment in the community. You know, as I've been out campaigning in favor of that bond measure, we've had 5 different community forums, numerous house parties, many one-on-one conversations with people. And I've been struck by that, the sense that there's almost a unanimity in the community about what makes for a strong, resilient community: a good school system, a good fire and rescue capability. We have a health district or a recreation district that is, top notch. We have a great library in North County, an emergency volunteer corps that does great work. But another element that is really critical is a modern, accessible, quality health and senior care that's really close to home, where people don't have to travel great distances to avail themselves of those kinds of services. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's why I'm seeking your vote next week.
Thank you so much, Marc. Marc, you are obviously running for the Nehalem Bay Health District, position 1, as we said, but you're also here to talk about the ballot measure, the proposed bond measure that's on folks' ballots for the Nehalem Bay Health District. Would you like to speak a little bit specifically about the proposed bond measure and what that is?
Of course, Sayde, thank you. The bond measure is attempting to do 3 specific things. One is to build a new Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy in Wheeler, more than doubling the square footage and capacity of the old Reinhardt Clinic building, which dates back to the 1980s and has outgrown its usefulness as a community health center. The pharmacy is tiny. We will have a new modern pharmacy in the new building. We'd have a dental suite and the capacity to improve and bring to the community specialty care services of various kinds that now are not available in North Tillamook County. Second aspect of the bond measure is to renovate and modernize the skilled nursing facility in Wheeler, the Nehalem Valley Care Center. This is the only facility of its kind on the Oregon coast between Astoria and Lincoln or Newport. And it, again, it's an aging facility, the very important facility in the community to provide long-term skilled nursing care as well as rehabilitation services for seniors, but it needs an upgrade and a modernization effort, and the bond issue would support that. Third part of the measure would go toward site preparation for a strategy to develop workforce housing, particularly geared toward healthcare and other essential workers in the community. That would involve demolition of the old Wheeler Hospital, which is way beyond its expiry date, needs to come down and make way on that footprint for a small compact neighborhood where you could create some really attractive apartments and amenities for healthcare and other essential workers in the community that would be very close to where they work. So that's what we're asking the community to support next week. It would be a big, big down payment on a long-term improvement and quality and accessibility of local healthcare and senior care in our community.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to ask you a few questions if that's all right. Can you describe to us the relationship between the Nehalem Bay Health District and the Nehalem Bay Health Care Center and Pharmacy? What is that relationship, and what is the monetary value of one to another?
The relationship dates back probably almost 30 years. The two entities collaborate to provide local primary healthcare services and a pharmacy. The health center is operated by a local not-for-profit corporation, a 501c3 entity with a local board. Through that local board, they have been able to qualify as a federally qualified health center, which carries with it certain requirements, but also certain benefits in terms of Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement and federal support, frankly, for a clinic like that in a particularly rural setting. The district owns the building and would own the new building that we are proposing to construct, and that 501c3 nonprofit local board leases that facility from the health district and operates. It employs the staff. It develops the relationships in the community to advance quality health care. And the way I look at the district's role in this relationship is to be the sponsor with the access to federal grants and federal support that we've received from, thanks mostly to the work of Senator Merkley, to provide federal funding for help provide federal funding to contribute to the construction of that building. So it's very much a collaborative relationship that dates back 30 years, but it's also a business relationship in the sense that the nonprofit leases the building from the health district.
So you mentioned that the proposed new building doubles the square footage, or more than doubles the square footage of the current health center and pharmacy. So can you talk specifically about what new healthcare services will for certain be added with this expansion in physical space?
Well, the first thing I guess I would stress, Sayde, is the ability to see and treat more patients. Right now, the clinic, the old Reinhardt Clinic building, the health center operates out of about a 5,000 square foot building. Very limited space to see patients, to operate pharmacy services. I think they do a terrific job, but in a very antiquated facility. So a new facility would vastly expand the space available to see new patients and treat more people. So that's number one. Second thing would be Gail Nelson, the CEO of the health center, has been systematically developing relationships with providers, other providers like Providence and Adventist, OHSU and others, in the expectation that if we create adequate space in a modern facility, we are going to be able to attract providers to the community to provide dental care, for example, which does not exist now. The capability to have a visiting cardiologist visit the community, pediatrician. So you ask for specific details. Until we have a facility that we can approach someone with and say, here is a place where your provider could practice medicine and really enrich the community, it's pretty hard to make a guarantee that we are going to be able to provide those services. But we're very confident that if we have a modern facility and with the relationships that are already developed, we will be able to meet that need in the community.
So almost like a build it and they will come kind of strategy. If you can upgrade your facilities, that brings the potential to upgrade healthcare services and bring in specialty providers. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Well, to a degree, yes, that's true. But I would say this as well. One of the advantages of having a federally qualified health center in the community is that it can offer the federal program to young healthcare professionals who are just entering the field, doctors who are coming straight out of medical school, need to do their residency someplace. And they can do that in a federally qualified health center like the one we have now and will have in the future if we build this new facility, that allows them to retire their medical school debt by working in a community like ours. Another attraction that will, we think, in a modern facility with a dedicated professional staff where we can serve as mentors to these young students, will be a real attraction for people to practice medicine in a beautiful part of the world in a new state-of-the-art facility. So we all know that attracting folks in the healthcare professions to rural areas is a challenge. It is particularly a challenge if you don't have up-to-date modern facilities. If we can create that up-to-date modern facility, I'm confident that we're going to be able to attract more professionals who want to live in the community, because we do have a good school system. We have a beautiful place to live. We have all the outdoor amenities that anybody could want. And the missing element is a place that would really be attractive for a young medical professional to practice their skill.
Talk to me about the timeline for the completion of the new healthcare building if the proposed bond measure passes, and then the timeline around housing, because like you've said, if one of the goals is to attract people to the area, we know housing is a problem.
Right.
You're also trying to address the housing by preparing some land to build some housing. But all that being said, what would the timeline be for the completion of the new healthcare building if the proposed bond measure passes?
Well, we've done a lot of initial work to prepare for the bond issue, including the actual schematic design of what the facility, how the facility would work, how it would be laid out. We haven't done the actual construction drawings for the building pending the outcome of the bond election, but we've done everything up to that point. So we know the size of the building, we know how it will work physically. So if the bond is successful next week, we will be able to have architects begin immediately to prepare the construction documents and just begin to seek the permits that are going to be required from the city of Wheeler and others to go ahead with the project. In probably the late summer timeframe, August, early September, the bonds would be marketed and the money would become available to begin both the renovation of the care center and aim toward construction of the new health center. So specifically to answer your question, Katie, we think between next week and the fall, we're going to be able to do a lot of work to finalize the construction drawings and design of the building. Then we'll be able to begin the permitting with the expectation that we could break ground in the second quarter of next year, 2024, probably about a 12 to 15 month construction window. So we could be in that building maybe in mid late 2025.
Thank you so much, Marc. I appreciate your time this morning. I just have one more question for you. And the question is, for homeowners in the district, this would be the third multi-million-dollar bond within 2 years that is adding to their tax burden. This is especially difficult for low-income homeowners, certainly. So what do you have to say to those folks who are concerned about this added tax burden?
Well, I understand the concern. I think folks at the Recreation District understand the concern. This is an opportunity, in my view, to make a long-term investment in the community with federal support in hand, the congressional funding that I mentioned earlier from the work of Senator Merkley, to make an immediate and a long-term investment in the community in quality healthcare. And I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but I think it's really important to understand that if we don't upgrade these facilities, there's no guarantee that we'll have a skilled nursing facility long-term in the community, or that we'll have even the clinic in the inadequate building that it currently exists in for the long term. So I think that really comes down to a question of how much do you value the idea that a resilient, strong community has quality local health and senior care. If you say that's important in the same way that a good school system and a good recreation district and other tax supported institutions in the community are important, then you have to conclude that, you know, this is a good sound investment. And I hope people will make that conclusion because we're really trying to do something that is a once in a generation down payment on long-term quality healthcare in the community.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Go ahead and move on to our next segment on the North County Recreation District. With us, we have Erin Laskey Wilson, who's running for Director Position 2. Erin is running against Constance Shimek, who is also here with us this morning. Mary Gallagher and Tia Laviolette, who are running for Director Position 1, were unable to attend today. So we're going to begin with introductions here in just a moment, and both Erin and Constance will have 90 seconds, and then we're going to move into questions. And just to be clear, I will be drawing the questions and determining who will answer first by a lottery system. The first candidate to answer will have 60 seconds, but certainly if you can give your answer in less than 60 seconds, you're welcome to do that. We'll let you know at the 15-second mark when your time is almost up. And then afterwards, the second candidate will have an opportunity to answer the same question in 60 seconds or less. And then we'll go back to the first candidate for 30 seconds if they have any follow-up or anything they'd like to add to clarify their answer. We may also go back to the second candidate and give them an additional 15 seconds. I might have some follow-up questions, so we'll bounce around like that. But I think it'll offer some good insights into these two candidates. So with that, we'll start with introductions. And Erin, I will let you go first. You have 90 seconds to introduce yourself if you're ready.
Hi. All right. Hello, I'm Erin Laskey Wilson, and I'm running for NCRD Board of Directors position number 2. I'm running because I feel it's important for board members to be fully invested in our community and have a deep understanding of our history. My family has lived in Nehalem Valley for 4 generations now. I grew up learning to swim at the pool. My children now participate in the swim program and the NCRD sponsored sports programs. My husband and I are members of the fitness center, and all 3 of our kids have attended. Actually, our youngest is still attending New Discoveries Preschool. I have served on the preschool board for 6 years, holding various positions, but the majority being fundraising chair. As a self-employed parent, I would bring a perspective to the board based in fiscal responsibility and self-motivation. My occupation requires negotiation and problem-solving skills that are valuable to any board member. I would like to see our working families better represented on the board. I want to strengthen our youth programs and make sure the families who live and work in our area are better supported. North County has an amazing tradition of looking out for one another. My goal as board member will be to carry on that tradition with a focus on working families. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin. Constance, your turn for introductions.
Hello, thank you. Constance here. I'm running for the board of directors for NCRD. Around me, people and organizations excel. We get things done. Now that's a bold statement. You might say, show me the money. Since 2008, I've been involved as board member, officer, and a driver of fundraising events. And since 2008, we've raised over $176,000 and 68,000 of that being raised this year alone. This is no accident. I live an intentional life. I don't try to, I don't hope for, I don't make excuses, and I certainly don't let circumstances stop me. I get involved to make a difference, to empower. Now, curiously, there's been very little new money raised for NCRD since 2021. Being dependent on community support, ongoing fundraising efforts, and effective grant writing, the NCRD cannot afford to let this happen. And I'm concerned the board wasn't watching. If I'm elected, I'll ensure the board is watching. The NCRD has had my heart since 2008. I have been consistently committed to its success, and around me, organizations and people excel. I ask you to vote for me, and I want to make a difference with NCRD. Thank you. My name is Constance.
Thank you, Constance.
Yes.
We're gonna ask some questions, and you're actually gonna go first. So you'll have 60 seconds to give your answer. And my question for you is, some residents have expressed feeling unwelcome at NCRD. And what steps will you take as a board member to ensure that everyone feels welcome?
Yeah, well, there's that concern that some people haven't felt welcomed. And there's a large part of our community that has felt very welcomed. And that was me. For 13 years, I felt very welcomed at NCRD until I started asking questions to the board and NCRD, specifically stage accessibility in the Performing Arts Center, accessibility for the pickleball courts for people with wheelchairs. There seems to be kind of a blindness on the board and NCRD for people that have mobility concerns. What I'll do to rectify that is just be a demand. You know, there's no reason that we don't have committees formed now to address these issues. I want to get the community involved. I want to have it be a safe space for everyone in our community to feel welcomed, to express their concerns, express their ideas. And that's what I'll take on for sure.
Great, thank you. Erin, same question to you.
So I also have been going to the NCRD for a very, very long time. I grew up swimming there, and now my kids swim there. I just said all of that, but you know, I've been using the NCRD almost on a daily basis now for about 6 years. I personally have never had any experience where I didn't feel welcome, but I know that there are those issues out there. And it really is upsetting to me if anyone felt like they are not welcome at the NCRD, because it's for everyone. So I take that very seriously. I would like to look at, listen to people's complaints and try to figure out how we can find a middle ground. Because again, it is really important for everybody to feel welcome. This is a district recreational center, so the district sponsors it, and we need to take that into account and make sure that everybody can utilize it.
Thank you. Constance, do you have anything that you'd like to add to your original answer?
What I'd like to add is just the unspoken, what the NCRD is saying without doing anything. We're saying that we don't care about people with mobility issues. We're saying that we don't care about people in wheelchairs having the same equity as us. So I get it, Erin. I get that, you've had very good experiences. Again, I did too until I started making requests of the NCRD. And then it was, well, we're ADA compliant. Well, being a community center, I think we need to be more than ADA compliant. I think we need to be accessible and go above and beyond what we have to do. Yeah.
Thank you. Erin, any last words on this subject?
Yeah, agree. I mean, definitely we need to, oh wait, did I unmute myself? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're doing great.
Okay. It's difficult. That building is a very, very old building prior to any accessibility issues. That building was built. So it's not just an easy task to get these things put in place, but we should definitely always be looking and trying our hardest to get to a place where everyone can use it. But it's definitely not just a overnight situation when you're working with a building that's 100 years old.
I have a follow-up question for you, Erin. You had mentioned in your opening speech about making sure that NCRD was accessible for working families. And can you just identify what you mean by working families and what steps you'll take to help support them? How will you identify them?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to identify them. When I say working families, I mean even the business owners in our area that have younger families or aging families. I would like to just build on what we already offer. I think that there is plenty of room to expand the services there. Constance actually mentioned the last forum that there's really no programs for our teenagers. And when I was growing up here, we definitely had like teenager Friday night swim and stuff like that. And I would like to see things like that come back where families can just rely more on the NCRD for activities like that. And just little things, the youth center is definitely a big aspect of the NCRD. That after school care is huge. And I just think there's always room for improvement and to better and variety.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to kick it back to you, Constance, with our next question. The question is, if elected, what steps will you take to ensure that people who need financial assistance get the support that they need?
Thank you. So the NCRD has a good scholarship program. It's being underutilized for individuals to use it. And, we primarily support the after school care program through the Friends of NCRD. They pay for those scholarships. I would like to see more focus, more communication from NCRD that there are funds available strictly for financial need. My concern is that many people don't trust NCRD. So are you going to give your financial information to an organization you don't trust? So again, building that trust with the community. I have relationships with almost every organization here as a newbie. I've only been here for 15 years. I think that that's one thing I'll bring to the NCRD is the community trust, because they'll trust me. And so I can bring that and have that be part of the NCRD board, which I think is unique.
Thank you, Erin. Same question.
Sorry, I just got interrupted.
That's okay. Is it helpful if I repeat the question?
No, I'm fine. Sorry.
Okay.
I think that scholarships are available. We have the Friends of NCRD. They're filling that space that we have to better help everybody. I think perhaps being more communicative with our fundraising, getting people, more volunteers in to help with fundraising for those scholarships, I think will do wonders for just getting the word out that they're available, for one, and to just making it even more robust and available.
Thank you. Constance, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. That I was on the board of directors for Friends of NCRD for 13 years. They have money. They have always had an abundance of money for scholarships. And so it's not about the money. It's about the delivery from that fund to the people that need it. And again, they do an excellent job for children and for families. It's the adults or the in-betweens that maybe don't have access or don't know. The website itself is very non-committed to personal financial needs. It says if you're I don't remember, it says if it's a medical problem that they have funds available. So it's very unclear who can get those scholarships. So again, bringing clarity, bringing intentionality to that will make a difference.
Thank you. Erin, any last words on this subject?
No, I don't think so. I think I've covered it pretty well.
Great. My next question will start with you, Erin. Do you think that there's work to be done to improve transparency between the board and the community? And if so, what steps will you take to improve those lines of communication?
I think that the board could definitely be, again, we all have room for improvement all the time. I think that we're in a different, we're obviously in a different world now. The boards everywhere have functioned a certain way and have communicated with their community a certain way. And definitely things have changed. So we can be a lot more out in front of people, and whether that's just releasing more instead of just releasing minutes, kind of condensing it down into more clear, concise recap of the meetings, making sure that people do know about them. And again, word of mouth is really big. So I think that if you are out there as a board member, answering questions, that's always going to be good.
Thank you. Constance, would you like to answer this question?
I apologize. I'm trying to run a garden sale and this and take payments. I apologize. What was the question again?
No problem. The question is, do you think there's work to be done to improve transparency between the board and the community? And if so, what steps would you take to improve those lines of communication?
Yes, thank you. If you look at our website, the NCRD website, it is there is so much information on there. It appears that it's very transparent. However, my concern is when a community member comes to a board meeting, they're easily dismissed, that they're not important, that their questions aren't valid. So that's the type of transparency that I want to increase, is having a board that will listen, that will respond. We may not agree, we may not be able to have an answer for those people, but we can respect people. So that's the type of transparency that I want to bring to this board, is an openness. Any question is welcomed, and it'll be welcomed with respect and the intention to get the issue complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin, do you have anything you would like to add to your answer?
I think board members have a difficult task to one of the meetings that I went to, a woman came and this was just a recent one. I think it was the one before last. A woman had came and she was questioning about the pool, the new pool being built, and she didn't understand why we were nixing the old one. And I do think that board members may see these repeat questions over and over again, and I can see how they may get frustrated. We should always be respectful to everyone, but I can see how maybe a board member might get a little frustrated once, when we're rehashing things over and over and over again. That's the duty of a board member. They need to be able to rehash those things and make everybody feel comfortable with it. I know that I've gone to board meetings before even I was running for the NCD, ask questions. And for the most part, they were very respectful to me. And even the woman that came in asking about the pool, they were very respectful to her as well. So I think that I think the current board, from what I've seen, has done a good job of respecting people's questions. And maybe we're perceiving them as being frustrated if they're asked the same questions over and over again.
Great, thank you. I just have one final question for the two of you, and then we will move on to our next segment. And Constance, I know you've got lots going on, so we'll start with you. And the question is, how aligned are you with the current direction of the board?
Is that Constance or me?
Constance, thank you, sorry.
How aligned am I right now? I have concerns. We don't have a permanent executive director. We have an interim director who has said that she doesn't want to be the director. She wants to retire. And right now, the board is not taking steps to find a new director. It took us 10 months to find Dondi. This isn't an easy process. The last time they created a committee. That committee looked at all of the applications, and then they chose the final 3 that then the board looked at. This can be done without a lot of stress on the board. I'm not aligned with how they are handling that situation right now. I'm also not aligned. The minutes often aren't exactly what happens at a board. They seem to have things move around. And I want integrity in board minutes. I want people to be able to read those minutes and know what happened during that meeting. So that's another area that I will definitely increase the integrity of, if you will.
Great, thank you. Erin, same question to you. How aligned are you with the current direction of the board? Oh, you're muted, Erin, sorry.
I'm in my car right now, and my 4-year-old just knocked on my window, so so she's going. I would say that I'm pretty in line with what the current board is going for. I think that every board has challenges. I think that this one has really tried to look at everything that they have from the angles that they have. I think that they have a huge task in front of them to get this full underway. Be a very consuming project. It's a very big one. It's actually the biggest one in our county at the moment. So this is a huge project that they are tackling. I'm a real estate agent, and I'm also building a house right now. And a house is a tiny little fraction of what this project is going to be. And there are so many little things that will come up over and over and over again throughout this entire project. So it's going to take a lot of the board's time. And meanwhile, while the board is doing that, they still have to make sure everything else is running operationally. I see it turned red. So I would say I'm pretty in line. I think that there's always room for improvement, and that's what I would like to bring to the board.
Thank you both so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. I know it's a busy Saturday for folks. So we are.
Can I ask a quick question, Sayde?
Yeah.
I've been going to the board meetings for 2.5 years, almost every one of them. And Erin, I haven't seen you at many until I've seen you at 2. How many board meetings have you attended within CRD?
Yeah, weirdly, the ones that I've been to, you haven't been there either. So that's interesting. We're just two ships passing in the night.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both again for your time this morning. We are going to move on for the sake of time because we have 2 more segments to get through. So up next, we have the Tillamook County Transportation District, and we have with us Jim Heffernan, who's running for position 1 against Tia Laviolette. And then we also have Mary Leverette, who is running for position 4 against Thomas Farrelly. Both Thomas and Tia were unable to make it this morning. So we are going to begin with introductions, and then we will ask Jim and Mary some questions and do another kind of roundtable. And again, just to remind folks that you get to vote for Jim and Mary if you'd like, as they're not opponents this morning. So we will begin our introductions with Jim, if you are ready.
Yes, I think so.
All right.
Okay. Hello, I'm Jim Heffernan. I moved to Tillamook in 1979 and have become a very big fan of the transportation district. I'm on their budget committee, and I've gone to all their board meetings, and I'm very impressed what they're doing. And I just promise to do my very best to make sure that the Tillamook County Transportation District remains the wonderful transportation district it is. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. Mary, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Thank you. I am Mary Leverette, and I am running for position 4 on the Tillamook County Transportation District Board. I am a native Oregonian, and I live in Wheeler. I have the time, energy, and experience to serve my community. I have a master's degree in psychology, and I had an almost 30-year career in government service, including working for the state of Oregon and the city of Portland, where I was a middle manager supervising both projects and staff. I'm also a volunteer. I'm a passionate volunteer. And the standout volunteer opportunity that gives me the most pride is the 14 and a half years I spent as a hospice volunteer. I believe strongly that the transportation district has made great strides recently. They've lowered fares, they've obtained buses that are easier for riders to get on and off, and they've added an additional round trip to Portland. But there's more to do. There are more challenges. We have unserved areas of our county. We have a complicated scheduling process and long waits for rides. And I think it's time to get creative, to listen, to learn, to talk to riders, fine-tune changes and evaluate how effective they are. And again, I have the time, energy, and experience to dedicate to my community. And I'm pleased to be here today. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We're just going to ask you two a couple of questions before we move on to our last segment. And Jim, the first question is for you. And it is, what do you think is the #1 improvement that the wave needs right now?
Oh, I believe there's a big need for bus shelters in our climate. It is part of the budget that bus shelters are in the fiscal year budget. We could certainly have more routes and shorter waiting times, but we also need to operate within the budget. I'm very impressed with the budget process. And we have the example of what happens when a board doesn't pay attention to the budget process. Just to the north of us, who are just now getting back some of their bus service. I think that's my answer.
Great, thank you so much. Mary, would you agree with Jim that bus shelters are a priority for the district? And what are some of the other priorities that you would like to see addressed?
I think shelters, excuse me, I interrupted you. Sayde, I think shelters are important. We live in a rainy climate. It's nice to have a bit of protection from that. But my concern rests more with evaluating the routes that we have and the frequency of the buses. And I'm thinking particularly of South County, where there are infrequent services and long waits for buses. And if there's a long wait for a bus, a shelter is a great thing. But I think we need to start with the actual service that we're providing to our riders, to our community, and then make it more and more comfortable as we fine tune.
So you mentioned evaluating routes and wait times, especially as it relates to South County. Do you have any ideas around how the board could do that? What would the process be for evaluating routes and making recommendations?
I think there are several ways that we can do it and do it effectively and gather a great deal of information. I'm thinking back to an answer that a school board candidate gave about using social media. We've got a very effective Pioneer. We've got a very effective North Coast BBQ system where we can get information out. We can survey our riders and find out what their needs and wants are. And we can talk to riders. I'd love to set aside one day a month and say, come ride with me. I'm here. I want to talk to you. I want to hear what your issues are so that I know how to go back to the board members and introduce proposed changes that are in sync with our policies and our finances, but meet the needs of individual riders throughout the county.
Great, thank you. Back to you, Jim. Just curious what your thoughts are on this about more bus routes, and do you see yourself advocating for more bus routes as a board member?
Well, if it's in the budget, I mean, an additional bus route, involves an additional vehicle, an additional driver. And, it has to be in the budget. We can't be, everything to everyone. I haven't seen, the ridership is really not that high outside the city of Tillamook. And even the city of Tillamook is, which I think is, outstanding, having a bus every half hour for 12 hours a day isn't that high. And I think it's a very, they keep very good track of ridership. And it's just a tough budget question. It would be lovely to be able to be TriMet and have a bus every 15 minutes everywhere, but we don't have the population. We don't have.
Well, you brought up an interesting point about ridership. So what steps do you think the district could take to increase ridership of even just the current bus routes?
People just need to know about it. We're very habituated to having our own cars and having our own rides we can depend on. That's a very good question. How to make bus riding a first choice. Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something to ponder. I'd love to get your thoughts on this issue. How do you see increasing ridership? Is that something that you you would advocate for as a board member, and what steps would you take to increase ridership?
Absolutely. I think advocating for increased ridership throughout the county is an ongoing project and an essential one. I remember my early days going to school in Portland and taking the bus and the advertising campaign. There were billboards, there were signs on the buses, and making the fare system easier so that perhaps you don't need exact change every time you get on. What are some ways that we can make riding the bus easier, more efficient for our riders, and getting the word out? There's a new app for arranging for lengthy trips. I don't know that much of the county is aware of that, but that's a handy process for learning when the bus is coming and what the routes are. I just think advertising, word of mouth, there again, using social media. I think there's so many ways that we can say, get on board.
And another question for you, Mary, Jim touched on the situation up in Clatsop County. So
yes.
So let's talk about that for a moment. And just as a board member, what steps will you take? What measures will you take to ensure that something like that doesn't happen here?
First of all, I have said this before, I'll say it again. I think the Clatsop County situation is heartbreaking for the people who depend on the public system to get to where they need to be. And I think it's a wake-up call for boards across the state. And I don't mean just transportation boards. I think a board member and the board members must have fiscal responsibility at the heart and soul of their day-to-day work on the board, working closely with the general manager in whom they have confidence and trust to provide them with accurate information. And if they don't feel they're getting accurate information, that they learn to ask the questions. I also think that board members have to pay attention to the policies that are in place that make transparency of the operations as clear as possible, not just for board, but for the riders and our community as well.
Great, thank you. Jim, I see you kind of nodding your head over there. So I think you are in agreement with what Mary's saying, but I'd love to know if you'd like to add anything to this particular situation.
Oh, yes, I very much agree with Mary, and I very much, one of the things I've learned is NWADA, or Northwest Oregon Transportation Alliance. It's the 5 counties, Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, Lincoln, and Benton. They all have, essentially the same format on their website, and everything is totally transparent if one just wants to go through the effort and look at it. A certain amount of blame in Clatsop County has to go to Clatsop County citizens who weren't paying attention. And how we can have Tillamook citizens pay attention, I don't know. One of the things on March 23rd, the board meeting took a break so they could talk to a lawyer to talk about litigation issues that they thought were coming up. And why that wasn't a warning bell to Clatsop County that the board is not doing its job, I don't know. I'm very glad that there's no such thing like that on the Tillamook board. And one of the things I'm very impressed with is the longevity of the people on the board. They've been doing it long enough that they really know their job. I'm just always impressed.
Great, thank you, Jim. Mary, do you have any final words on this subject before we move on?
I think Tillamook County has an increased responsibility over the other counties that form the 5-county alliance, as Jim said. We've got Benton, Lincoln, Columbia County, Tillamook, and Clatsop County. And Tillamook is responsible for overseeing some of the funds that are distributed to each one of those counties. I think that puts us in a position of making double sure that the board is alert and aware and communicating with our communities. I sometimes feel that transparency becomes a word that just gets bandied about. And people say everything is transparent or we want transparency. But I think transparency is really in how much community input you end up getting around critical issues.
Great, thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate your answer on that. And just a reminder to folks who are watching, Mary and Jim are both running for the Tillamook County Transportation District Board. They're not running, they're not opposing each other. You can vote for both of them. They're running for separate seats. Their opponents just were not able to be here this morning. So we're going to move on to our final segment. I will say, however, we will get an opportunity to hear one last time from all of the candidates who are still with us during closing statements, but we are going to move on to our final statement or our final segment tonight on Tillamook Bay Community College. And with us, we have Mary Faith Bell, who is running for position 7 against Lowton Hooley. Lowton did not respond to our invitation to be here today. And we have Betsy as well, who is running for position 5. Her opponent, Tia Laviolette, is also not here today. I don't believe Mary Jones is here. I just want to double check. No, Mary Jones was unable to make it this morning. She is running for position 1, and she has 2 opponents, Jonathan Whittles and Dwayne McClintock, who are also not here this morning. So we are going to start with introductions, and Mary Faith and Betsy, you will each have 90 seconds to introduce yourself, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So we will start with Betsy. Betsy, you are muted. If you could unmute yourself.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Good morning. My name is Betsy McMahon. I am running for re-election to the Tillamook Bay Community College Board. And I'm very happy to be. I'm very proud of what's been going on at Tillamook Bay. So I'm very happy to be here. We have done some exciting things. It was one of only a few community colleges that has increased enrollment. In fact, we've grown 16% over the last year. In the past 5 years, we created 24 new programs, which are mostly career technical. For example, we have the truck driver training program, which gives 4 weeks training in a state-of-the-art driving simulator. Also, manufacturing and industrial technology program is growing, strongly supported by local industries. Affordability, TBCC offers free classes to college seniors and juniors, and we are the second most affordable college in the state of Oregon. And we provide emergency funds to students who are in need. We offer opportunities to people of all backgrounds. In fact, 23% of our students are Hispanic. And I and other members of my board are very proud of our emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're the smallest college in the state of Oregon, but we ranked 8th out of 677 colleges that were looked at based on cost, educational, and career opportunities. TBCC passed its 7-year accreditation last year with flying colors. Myself, I've spent most of my life in education as an educator and a teacher, and that has been mostly in community colleges. In fact, I taught at Tillamook Bay Community College for 6 years, which gave me an inside look at how the college works. Thank you, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Betsy. Mary Faith, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Faith Bell. I'm running for re-election to the Tillamook Bay Community College Board. I've been on the board for 10 years. I'm also a county commissioner, so I know most of you, maybe all of you. And a couple of people have asked me, well, what's up with you running for the college board because you're a commissioner? And so here's the story. I have been on the college board for twice as long as I've been a commissioner. When I was elected to be a commissioner, I checked to see, can I stay on the college board because I love it. And I love the work. I love the mission. I love the college. I wanted to continue the work. And the answer is yes, you can be, I'm paid as a county commissioner, but you can be on other boards as long as you're not paid. So, and I guarantee you this is not a paid position. So, so I just want to stay on the board. We have been doing throughout this campaign, we've been doing a great job talking about how stable the college is, how the college excels, what a fabulous job we're doing, how strong our current board is, and all of that is true. But last week we had an excellent example of what happens when a board is unstable. Unfortunately, we were just talking about Clatsop County Transportation Board and their woes. That Clatsop County Community College is also in crisis. They lost their president and 3 board members last week, and so now they're in a leadership crisis. And the story is, it's exactly the reason we want to keep our board intact. Their board has been in turmoil for some time. They've been publicly they've had public strife about ideological issues repeatedly in public meetings, and it culminated in this big explosion. Now the president's gone, and 3 of the 7 board members are. So I ask you to keep our board together, please, because we're doing a great job, and it's for the good of the college. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mary Faith. I have some questions for both you and Betsy to answer. Again, you're not running against each other. Basically, you're running almost as a slate. So we're going to start with you, Mary Faith, if that's okay. And the question is, there's been a rumor going around that some programs at TBCC call for lowering academic standards to clear a path forward for student success. Can you speak about this?
I can. My opponent is saying that, and it's inaccurate. I think it's based on a misunderstanding. Several months ago, the college had in the board meeting, we discussed the issue of changing how it works for people who are coming into college who aren't at college level math, who aren't at that level. And so let me just back up for a second and say that the admission standard for community colleges is that everyone gets in, period. So it's false to say we're lowering admission standards, because the admission standards is everyone gets in, which in my opinion is the point of community college. We don't have the access issues that universities have. Everybody gets in. So what my opponent has been talking about is that community colleges, as a best practice, just changed the practice of, if someone comes to college and they take a placement exam and they're considerably below college level math, then they would be set up with a series of remedial math classes, and that series of classes could be so daunting to people that they gave up. So as a best practice, community colleges have changed their practice to put people in entry-level college math classes and provide them with all the resources and supports that they need to get up to speed and be successful. So that's what's really happening, and that's at the source of that rumor.
Great, thank you. Betsy, do you have any thoughts on this subject that you'd like to add?
Only that Mary Faith explained it beautifully.
Great, thank you.
I don't think there's anything more, because I was in the meetings and I know what's going on. And that was, again, it was a falsehood. It was a rumor, and that is not true.
So thank you, Betsy. Question for you then. What is your position on creating programs and incentives that enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion at TBCC?
Well, that's a very good question, because the area that we are living in here at Tillamook County, they really need support. Certainly, the students here at Tillamook Bay Community College participated in a a survey which was done by the Hope Center, and it was found that 53% were food insecure, 27% were homeless, and 60% experienced housing insecurity in the last year. So we have done everything to help our students in any way that we possibly can. There are grants and other programs to assist all students. We have a vital working food bank at the college, and we have connections with local agencies which offer much help for those students who need assistance. Okay, that's all for now.
Great, thank you, Betsy. Next question is for you, Mary Faith, and this has to do with student loans. Okay, so currently TBCC has an exceptionally low student loan usage. I think it's less than 2%. And just taking into consideration that student loans can assist in paying for things like living expenses and therefore free up students to not have to work. Do you think that the college should be not only making these funds available, but encouraging students to take out student loans? What are your thoughts on that subject?
Well, I don't think it's the college's place to encourage students to take student loans. No, I think, and they are available. So I also don't think it's the college's place to make them available, because they just are available. So I think each person has to weigh the benefits. It is a tremendous benefit to some people to be able to focus exclusively on college and not have to work while they're going to college. I understand that completely. And I have observed that. I've observed it especially among single parents with young children, that they can't balance all of the things. They can't balance working and taking care of young children and going to college full time. In my experience, I didn't go to college when I had a child, and so I worked all the way through college, and I didn't have to take out loans while I was at community college, and that was a tremendous blessing to me, because the weight of student loan debt is burdensome, and student loan debt changes people's lives also. So each person really has to weigh that out. And what I think TBCC does a great job of is providing people with counseling and a space to talk through the options, what really is in your best interest.
Betsy, is there anything that you would like to say on the subject about, access to student loans? Or if you think the college should be encouraging students to take out loans?
We do as much as we can to assist people who have needs financially. And one of the main goals is to not have student loans, so that people can graduate without that burden on their shoulders. So that's all I can say. We're working as hard as we can to assist all students that we possibly can not to have a loan.
Great, thank you. Another question for you, Betsy. How will you work with the challenge and the perhaps conflict with other board members who may be ideologically opposed to you in order to get things accomplished for students and for the college?
That's a really good question. Our board works so well together that we haven't had any large conflicts on this board. We've been so fortunate in this way. However, if there were any conflicts, what we would do is probably there's many ways to deal with disagreements. We would have a one-on-one discussion, or maybe have a breakout where 2 or 3 people discuss the issues separately, or we could meet with the president, Dr. Tomlin, to work things out, or step away and say, okay, let's get together in a week and talk this over. So there's many paths to take in this with having disagreements. I've certainly been in groups with disagreements before. However, I must say our TBCC board is working beautifully together. We're very proud of our accomplishments this year. The new healthcare building will be coming soon in the next couple of years, and we're all chugging together to get things going for the institution.
Mary Faith, would you agree with that assessment? And again, kind of same question to you, how would you deal with board members who are ideologically opposed to you in order to keep things moving for TBCC?
I do agree with Betsy's assessment. We work together really well. We don't always agree on every single issue, but we have shared values and we're all driven by the mission of the college. And so I think that's what's essential for an effective board, is that everybody's committed to the mission. I talked recently with President Emeritus Connie Green about our board. She endorsed all of us, and for which I'm grateful. And she has been, since she retired from Tillamook Bay Community College, she's been working as a mentor for small rural community colleges in crisis. So she's been moving around the country, working to help small rural community colleges that need the help. And what she said is that very consistently, colleges that don't have stable boards don't thrive. And so she praised us. Part of the reason she wanted to endorse us is because our board is stable. So then the question is, if people are elected to our board who are ideological opponents, we're going to become unstable. I think we would need to establish, we would need to have workshops about the mission. We would need to establish what are our common values. We would have to start we would have to talk about how do we practice communicating respectfully in a situation where we're ideologically opposed, and it would just be much more difficult to get the work done.
Right. Appreciate your time again this morning, Betsy and Mary Faith, and we will hear from you again during closing statements, which we'll move into right now for the sake of time, because we are getting down to the wire. This has been a very robust discussion, so I just can't tell you how much I appreciate everyone being here and for answering these questions. So we will give each candidate about 45 seconds to offer a brief closing statement to voters. As a reminder, a lot of our candidates here this morning are not running against each other. You can vote for almost all of them if you'd like, but the important thing is that you get out and vote May 16th. Make sure you get that ballot in. So we'll begin closing statements with Marisa. Are you still here? Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Great. Take it away.
Okay, so I'm Marisa Bayouth-Real. I'm a former Neah-Kah-Nie educator, and I'd love you to vote for me for Zone 2. Something that I'd like to add that may seem a little perhaps from left field is, as I participated in this event and made myself available for community members and little meet and greets, I would love to see our community come together more. While MooVoter is nonpartisan, there is a perception in our community that it is partisan. And so I'd like to see in future elections, whether or not I take part in them as a candidate or just a voter, I'd love to see us come together and have two hosts, perhaps from what is seen as opposing sides, perhaps, so that we can begin to really bridge that gap in our community that seems to have really gone deep in the last 5 or so years. So, and I'd bring that same togetherness to my work on the school board.
Great, thank you so much. Next, we will go to Michele. Is Michele still here? No, she is not. Okay, Joseph, are you still here? If you would like to give a closing statement.
Sure. I'm Joe Carr. I'm running for Neah-Kah-Nie School Board in Zone 7, and I hope that you vote for me. I am a former teacher and administrator, highly involved in the community. One of the things that I would want to work on is what I call a career council. It would be a advisory body from the community with business leaders, school leaders, teachers, staff, families, and this would be a formal body working on career fairs, career days, internships, job shadowing, experiences in the community to see what work people do once you finish school, what your options are once you graduate. And so that's a big project that I would want to take on. If you vote for me, thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Marc Johnson, closing statements.
Thank you, Sayde. I just want to say that I am Marc Johnson. I'm the incumbent candidate for the Nehalem Bay Health District Board, and I hope you will be comfortable supporting me for that role going forward. Also strongly endorse the bond measure on the ballot to make a generational investment in local health care and senior care. And I just want to say, as I listened to the conversation with Betsy and Mary Faith, I want to underscore one thing that seems to me so important, and one of the reasons why I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to have better health care in the community is because Tillamook Bay Community College made a determination to push forward on a nursing and health profession building and curriculum at the college. It's going to be transformative in terms of an on-ramp for young people in the community to engage in health professions, to serve the kind of facilities that the health district operates in North Tillamook County. So a big shout out to Betsy and Mary Faith and their colleagues for that visionary move. And I appreciate very much the opportunity to be with you again this morning.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think Constance probably had to step off, but Erin, if you're still there, if you'd like to give a closing statement.
Yeah, hi. I just want to say that, you know, if I am elected as a board member, I will work really hard to make sure that people are heard and feel comfortable with the ERD. That's a very big deal to me. There's also just little things that I would like to see with the, you know, with youth programs, and even the fitness center. You know, the NCRD is a source of positivity in our lives, and it's helped me in a lot of ways. And I just want it to be available to everyone as they work through everything they're going through. And I do think that, to touch on what Marisa said earlier, I do think that our area is kind of having some growing pains at the moment, and I would like to see a more even response to it. And I will definitely bring that to the board. I want to see that everybody is heard and respected.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for your time this morning. Jim, would you like to give a closing statement, Jim?
Oh, yes. I guess I'm unmuted. I put on the chat the website for the transportation district, and I would just invite everyone to watch what we're doing, watch what they're, well, hopefully what we're doing, or at least watch what they're doing. And I think that applies to all the boards. I think, and please vote for me. And in any case, just please vote.
Thank you so much, Jim. Mary.
I'm Mary Leverette. I'm running for the Tillamook County Transportation District, and I see a future for public transportation where every member of our community can travel seamlessly at a moment's notice and at an affordable price. I am ready to sit down with riders to assess their needs and wants, to learn what can be done and how best we can do it, and to collaborate with other resources to make sure that our public transportation system is as viable and effective and efficient for the members of our community. Thank you. Please vote by May 16th.
Thank you so much, Mary. Betsy, would you like to give a closing statement?
Yes, I would. My statement basically is I am so proud of what has happened in the last few years at Tillamook Bay Community College, and it's certainly not just due to me. We do have a strong board, a strong president, and our staff is so caring and works so well with the students who need a lot of support. That's what I'm proud of, and I want to continue that. And echoing what Marc Johnson just said, we are all excited about the upcoming, not just our nursing program, which will be hopefully starting in the fall, but also about construction of the healthcare facility, which will be started in the next few months. It'll take a while, but in less than 2 years, it should be there for us and for the whole community.
Thank you so much.
Please vote.
Mary Faith, any closing statements?
I want to say thanks to you, Sayde. Outstanding job. Thanks to MooVoter and Tillamook County Pioneer for hosting these forums. I love something Marc Johnson was saying earlier about the community gatherings they've had to talk about the bond. They've been talking about what makes a strong community. And I agree so much that we have all of the elements of a strong community here in North County. And I'm very grateful for that. It dramatically contributes to our quality of life. That includes community college. Please vote for all 5 of us. It also includes the health district and their leadership. So I'm a strong proponent of the health district bond. And you asked someone that question. I wish you'd asked us all, because it's to me, it's a question of investing in the quality of life for our community. And I'm just really, I see I have the red card. So I'm just really grateful to be part of this group of outstanding community leaders. So thank you. And thank you all for running.
Thank you, Mary Faith. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this forum. Thank you again to all of the candidates for making time this morning. Thank you to the audience for showing up. Thank you to MooVoter and the Tillamook County Pioneer for hosting this forum. I've had a lot of fun in getting to moderate. So I just want to remind everyone to please get your ballots turned in by May 16th. And with that, I will just say, have a great weekend, enjoy the sunshine, and don't forget to vote.
Thank you, Sayde.
And happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Oh yeah, happy Mother's Day.